Hello and good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Market Snapshot series. My name is Rufus Kamau, Market Analyst at FX Pesa. So today we'll be having a very interesting session. We'll be talking about some technical analysis on the major pairs in Forex. I'll be doing some analysis on gold, oil, as well as the stock market indices. So wherever you are, once you join in, kindly say hi on the live comment section, and this will confirm that everything is working just fine. So as usual, I would like to begin with a disclaimer that this session is not investment advice. It's not a recommendation to trade, so you should always do your own due diligence. And of course, practice proper risk management. So let's begin by highlighting that today is the Thanksgiving holiday. So we will be expecting that European and US stock markets will be closed. So we don't expect much of an activity, especially from the American side. So in such a case, we tend to see the markets being a little bit slow, but nevertheless, we still expect to see some activity for the day. So also highlight that in the Friday right after Thanksgiving holiday is usually Black Friday. So this is when we see out of retail chains and e-commerce companies basically issuing huge discounts for the year. And this can lead to increased sales, especially for retail companies. So investors are usually on the watch for market activity on Thanksgiving Day, the Black Friday, and of course, the Thanksgiving weekend. So we will be on the lookout for that. So without saying much, I think we can jump straight into the economic calendar and try to understand the key highlights for the day as we continue with the session. So, hello, Bumba Fred, and thank you for joining. Hello, Willie Bet, and thank you for joining. So, let's get this going. So, as you can see from the economic calendar, of course, the major highlight of the markets was the core PCE price index month over month. This was yesterday in the afternoon at 6 p.m., where we saw that personal consumption expenditures increased by 0.3% as expected. And this was in the month of October. But then when you look at the year-over-year measurements, there was a slight increase in core PCE price index, indicating that inflation is picking up again or heating up in the US. And this is quite a worry for the Fed. The Fed might be a little bit concerned about the rate cuts on the next meeting in December. So outside of that, crude oil inventories in the US came in at negative 1.8 million barrels, which was a huge drop from the previous reading of an increase of 0.5 million barrels. So we expected a drop of negative 1.3, so the drop was much bigger. And as we all know, whenever inventories are low, it tends to be bullish for oil prices. So fast forward to today, we are expecting the German preliminary CPI month over month. That might be released around 11 a.m. Then we have the Spanish flash CPI, or basically a measure of inflation for Spain. So these two major reports will be serving as leading indicators for the European Consumer Price Index. So we'll be getting a speech from the governor of the Reserve Bank of Australia, Mr. Bullock. This will be happening at 11:55 a.m. And outside of that, we don't have any other major announcements besides the Canadian current account data, which is basically the difference between exports and imports. And as for the US market, it will be a bank holiday in observance of the Thanksgiving Day. So on this particular day, most Forex brokers remain open for holiday except Christmas and New Year's Day. So stock markets and banks have slightly different holiday schedules. So since the banks facilitate a majority of foreign exchange volume, when they are closed, the market is less liquid and speculators become more dominant market influence. This can lead to both abnormally low or abnormally high volatility, But as we all know, in most cases, when there's a big holiday, traders often to take a break. So we tend to see more of a sideways momentum in the market. So you tend to see muted market activity. So outside of that, I'll be trying to see if there's any highlights this morning. So of course, we have news from South Korea, which unexpectedly cut the base rate by 25 basis points down to 3.0% at the November meeting. So European markets head for higher open as investors looked to recover losses from previous session. Japanese yen holds near 5-week highs, but we already seen some reversals happening this morning. Brent declines, OPEC meeting in focus. Of course, there was a postponement of the OPEC meeting. So I'll just show you this quite quickly. So of course, we have some breaking news. Shares of key chip suppliers jump as US reportedly considers toned down China curbs. So OPEC Plus postpones meeting to decide oil production strategy to December 5, sources say. So the OPEC Plus nations were supposed to have a meeting on Sunday, this Sunday on the 1st of December, but then they postponed the meeting, and now they are bound to be meeting at the 5th of December. So the OPEC Plus Oil Alliance has postponed a meeting to decide the next step of its crude production strategy to Deck 5, two delegate sources have told CNBC. So we have seen quite a number of things happening, especially since Monday, where we talked about US President Trump basically promising to go ahead with his promise of tariffs. So with major announcements focusing on Mexico, Canada, and China. So in this case, we are looking at US considering a toned down China curbs, meaning that we are seeing a much softer approach with Trump on how many companies and industries might be affected by its promise of higher tariffs from Chinese products. So also, we have seen the president of Mexico within the same week talking with the president-elect Donald Trump, highlighting that she's willing to address the border crisis, reduce the immigration to the US, close the border, and make sure that there are no drugs crossing the border. And with that promise, we have seen the Mexican peso make an impressive recovery against the US dollar, despite the big spike that happened earlier in the week. So outside of that, if we look at the major highlights in the markets this morning, iron ore rises on robust steel production in China. Turkey trade deficit narrows in October. We have China stocks fall on escalating trade tensions. This has been the story of the week since Monday. Turkish economic morale weakens in November. Sweden trade surplus sharply narrows in October. We have Danish retail sales, which rose the most in 3 months. European markets head for a higher open. Of course, we had a breakout to the downside in silver, hitting an 11-week low. Estonia retail sales for the least in over 2 years. Copper stabilizes in softer dollar. Dutch business confidence improves in November, and Japan 10-year yield track US Treasury yields lower. So on the cryptocurrency side, we've seen Bitcoin and Ethereum taking some step back with Ether slipping 2.19%. So India equities fall in early deals, and from FX updates, you can see that the top currency gainers are one, the Mexican peso, which is up 0.9% today. And this is after the Mexican president made negotiations with Trump, and we saw the Mexican peso recovering. So the dollar is still positive. It's making an impressive recovery this morning. It's up 0.13%. And the biggest losers in the currencies market are the South Korean won, which is down 0.35%, the Japanese yen, which is down negative 0.33%, the euro is still down 0.1%, and the UK pound down 0.09%. So those are some of the major highlights in the market. Let me see if I missed anything. Just a sec. So yes, we've just had the inflation data from Spain. So Spanish HICP month-over-month flash actual was 0%, and this is compared to the forecast of 0.1% and the previous 0.4%, showing that housing is slowing down in terms of change in prices. So for CPI month-over-month, we got 0.2%, same as the forecast, and of course, much lower than the previous reading of 0.6%. So HICP year-over-year, 2.4%, as expected. Then Spanish CPI year-over-year, which is now the annual measure of inflation, showed that inflation increased to 2.4%, same as previously forecasted, and of course much higher than the previous reading of 1.8%. So outside of that, we don't have any major announcement. So since Monday, we have seen the probability of the Fed going for a rate cut increase from 60% up to 68.2%, meaning that the market is becoming increasingly confident that the Fed will be cutting rates by a further 25 basis points on its next meeting, which will be happening on the 18th of December, and that is 20 days from today. So that's the key highlights for the day. I think now we may jump into some technical analysis and try to understand where the markets might be headed next. So this is called the MetaTrader 5 trading application. And as you can see, the first chart we'll be talking about is the dollar index, which has been struggling with the bullish momentum. So we all remember the Trump trade. This was the big spike in the dollar index since the Trump won the election. So from the election day, that was the 5th of November, we have seen the dollar index make significant gains, and it went up about 4.58%, hitting a high of 108.019. And then since then, we have seen the market taking some steps backwards. So looking at the price action this week, we started with a huge drop on Monday. The market pulled back and retested the open of the day before going further downwards on Tuesday. Then yesterday being Wednesday, we saw a continuation of the sell-off in the dollar index. And then today we had this surprise change in direction where the market opened with a gap downwards and then closed the gap immediately. And since then, during the Asian session, the dollar index has been making an impressive recovery. And this shows how much the dollar is resilient. So with that in mind, we know that there was a big sell-off in USD JPY. So if you look at the opening price of the week, we opened with a gap downwards, closed the gap, and the market continued pushing lower. So fast forward Tuesday and Wednesday, big sell-off in the dollar against the yen, and we had a record drop in USD yen. So from the forward chart, this is how it looks like. Of course, we had made an analysis here that if we happen to get a breakout towards the lower side, then we go for short selling positions. So this played out as expected as the market broke outside of this triangle. I know if you attended the Tuesday session, then you remember this analysis. So after that, now we are seeing the market grabbing some good liquidity from these levels here. And since then, notice that there was a false break and the market reversed immediately, which now implies that the dollar being this strong, we could be seeing a reversal and an extension of this rally to around 153.263. So we should be expecting the dollar to make some good recovery against the yen. So the pound is also making some good recovery against the yen. So here we are looking at a market that literally just bounced off the lower trend line. So if you follow this particular path, then you know that this area has been acting as support for quite some good time. And now the market just bounced from this area yesterday. And we could be seeing an extension of some bullish momentum from these levels. So looking at the forward chart, there's a good likelihood that the market might be extending this rally to around 192.837. From the 1 hour chart, this is how it looks like. So potentially the market going for these particular levels. So for AUD/USD, it has been quite a struggle, especially after the market formed a double bottom. So we are still expecting to see if the market will complete the journey and get to the previous high of around 0.65443. So this is something we speculated on, and this was on Tuesday. So there was quite a nice bounce. It didn't get quite to our target, but at least got to the first level. So pull back, and then yesterday continued pushing higher. So today there has been a slight pullback, but the overall thesis remains the same. So we still expect to see the Australian dollar regain momentum against the dollar. So for pound USD, it seems like the market made quite an impressive recovery here. So just to show you the key highlight here, we had a key level resistance around this area here. So notice how many times the markets have rejected this area here. And now seeing the dollar regaining some strength, it could be likely that the market now retests these areas here, an area that has served both as support and resistance within the last 2 weeks. So in this case, if we continue seeing a strong recovery in the dollar, then this might be an idea that the market comes back to retest this area. So of course, we don't expect much volatility today, and that there being a holiday, we could be seeing some slow momentum. So sorry for that. So it's a similar kind of price action for Euro USD. So after attempting to get to this area, found some resistance and the market changed direction immediately. So the key theme for the week has been following this path, and now it seems like the market is headed towards the lower trend line as it maintains within this technical pattern. So we should be expecting to see some further downside momentum as the market looks to retest this lower trend line here. So outside of that, the Nikkei 225 index managed to bounce quite nicely from the lower trend line last week. So it pulled back to the same trend line and managed to bounce here towards midnight yesterday. And now we are seeing a very strong bullish momentum emerging from that. And now the case is a bit different. So having formed a previous high last week, now we are looking at that high being retested again as the Nikkei 225 index makes an impressive recovery this morning. So expect to see some further upside momentum towards the 39,000 price level. So as for gold, we managed to identify that now we are seeing some interesting pattern where there is lower highs as well as lower lows. So big swings here, and then the swing got smaller. And now in the current swing, as we expected, now the market to be headed toward the lower trend line. This was closely halted as the market retested this support area here. And upon getting to this area, there was a strong bounce. So from the 1 hour chart, notice how the market changed direction. And now it seems like we entered some form of correction territory for the last 2 days. So the market seems to be oscillating between these two trend lines here. And if you are to check correctly, you notice that this was not the major trend line. The trend line was right here. So clearly, the market was oscillating between these two trend lines. And then today, slightly after midnight, there was a sharp drop which was faced with an immediate reversal, which implies that we are likely to get back into pattern and the market to push a little bit higher towards the previous high around 26.57, as this shows a rejection of lower prices happening earlier this morning. So notice how the sharp drop was met with these long tails in the morning, indicating that the market was rejecting lower prices. So notice this sequence of tails here. And since then, the market has erased the losses and it seems to be pushing even higher. Of course, the target would be around 26.57, which was the high yesterday. So with the OPEC having postponed their meeting, you can see some form of panic happening in the markets. And from the 15 minutes chart, this is clearly a consolidating market. And in such a case, we try to understand where the direction of the breakout might be. So in this case, this market clearly is forming lower highs. And for the lows, we are seeing them following a path along this area here. So clearly a market to look forward to trading when there's a clear breakout to either side, either to the upper side or to the lower side, but a good market to watch. You could be seeing some good volatility. So in this case, we observe and we don't judge. So we basically wait for the market to make that eventual break. And then, of course, we all know about targeting. We would be looking at yesterday's high as potential TP1. This also is a potential TP level. And of course, we don't forget this area here as also a potential TP. So if we happen to get a breakout, the market could head, say, to this first level, which is marked by yesterday's high, this level, which was a previous bottom, and this level, which was a previous high. So for the Nasdaq 100 index, clearly we had a clean break towards the lower side, and then the market reversed. So this is more of a book pattern where we normally see a breakout, then a retest of the breakout level, which implies that now we should be anticipating another bearish momentum from this point, dropping all the way to the base of the pattern, which is around this area here. So we should be expecting something similar to this. So we continue observing to see if we happen to witness some evidence of sellers coming into the market. So we'll be observing to see if there's momentum downwards. This is no good momentum. So we are looking for a directional candlestick such as the red candlesticks here. So it hasn't happened yet. So it's a wait and see kind of scenario. And then we react to what we see. So the Dow continues to be the strongest stock market index after Trump won the election. So in this case, you can notice the big bullish momentum that happened after Trump. So after this, the market pulled back, then continued pushing higher. So from the 1 hour chart, we can already see that the market has been hitting new all-time highs every day this week, which is basically indicating that we could be seeing some further upside. Of course, today we are looking at the market just moving sideways. So we observe 44,795 price level to see if there's a breakout. And if there's a breakout, then the target is the market going for another all-time high. Russell 2000 index is now in a range for the last 2 days. Clearly, we are looking at a retest of the lower trend line and a bounce towards the upper trend line. And for the SP 500, there was also a break on the lower trend line, and now we are looking at a potential retest. So whenever you have this, the idea after this has already happened, and the market goes back to the same area, is to observe, So in this case, we should be observing and looking for a potential break in the same direction of the original break. So we observe these and start looking for a potential breakout towards the lower side. which would imply that the market is headed lower. And in that case, we should be looking at a new low towards the previous lows. So potentially a drop could emerge here and the price drops to 59.63. So as for BTC, it's a similar case. We had a breakout and then a very strong rally, and now we are seeing a pattern emerging of a sequence of lower highs. So with the previous high being 99,600, the other one being 98,889, and then the last one being yesterday at 97,189. And upon hitting that price action level, then we're expecting some further downside momentum for the day. So it seems like we are seeing some form of pullbacks happening on Thanksgiving Day. So for the dollar against the Swiss franc, clearly we had a breakout, and now we are seeing the market pulling back. So as usual, the breakout retest kind of technical formation. So after the sharp drop, then the idea is to see the market going to retest the same area. So this could be a trade idea for the day as the dollar recovers towards this area. So outside of that, New Zealand USD clearly struggling to complete the journey, and the previous high was around 0.59186. So upon the market bouncing from the lower side, and there was quite a struggle here. Notice how the market really struggled bouncing from this area, and now making a very strong rally. We haven't hit the resistance yet, so we could be seeing that playing out, especially if the market happens to break out of this noisy pullback here. So it's more of a flag kind of formation after the bullish momentum yesterday. So of course we observe the potential break. And lastly, as I had already mentioned, we have these the USD trading against the Mexican peso. So on Tuesday, a very strong rally. Wednesday started pulling back, and Thursday we have already erased all the gains that the dollar had made against the Mexican peso. So the real question is whether the peso will continue strengthening, and if that plays out, then the idea is to short if the market happens to break this area. So this sharp reversal could potentially be extended to around 20.07769. So that's it for the day. And now I'll be checking to see if there's any questions, address them as we approach the end. So hello, Benson. I can see Aikobua Wanjohi. So how will rebalancing affect the market as the month ends? I would say think of it as the market slowing down towards the holidays. So for a lot of people, even traders, if they haven't taken a leave recently, they tend to clear their leaves towards the end of the year. So some traders will say this is enough profits for the year. I'm closing and going on holiday. I'll come back right after Christmas to check on the Santa rally. So mostly you tend to see the market slowing down around this week. So we tend to see some reversal in major trends. So the end seems to be clearly weak. So I expect more currencies to be making some recovery against the yen. Hello, Nyambu, Gitumbi. So right now, the dollar index is so disoriented. Do you think it will continue rising even after the Fed cuts rates on 18th December? So there has been numerous bets on Trump, and we still have those gains despite the sell-off we saw. So I would expect that 25 basis point cut has already been priced in. So we should be expecting the dollar to respond positively to the rate cut, as we have seen with other previous central banks. Case in point, if you look at the Reserve Bank of New Zealand and what they did yesterday, they cut rates by 50 basis points, but instead of their currency weakening, it responded by strengthening against other currencies because investors had already priced in that expectation. So, good question here. What's your view on Black Friday? Black Friday, we just focus on stocks. especially e-commerce stocks. So look at companies like Amazon's, Macy's, and so on. So JD.com, Alibaba, those might be stocks of interest during Black Friday, because if they make mega sales and there's unusual spending, then they tend to take all the benefit. So question to check on gold against the euro. So it's the same thing we are seeing here. So a very strong bounce from this area. Of course, we had some form of liquidity grab here. So notice the lowest price and the lowest tail here. So market dips just slightly and then immediately reverses direction, indicating that now we could be headed much higher. So of course, we have two key target areas here. So one being the previous high here at around 25.15 and 25.27. So this is expected to complete here and then potentially extend here at 25.27. So this is from Felix. Since we had red news on DXY and DXY has been in a bearish move, can that mean that the Trump trade is over and we are now on a bearish momentum? Trump trade isn't over yet. There's still so much that he's trying to organize. From one side, he's trying to negotiate peace between Russia and Ukraine, negotiate peace between Israel and neighboring countries. He's trying to negotiate trade deals with Mexico, with Canada, with China. All these things are happening at the same time, and they have a real impact in the markets. So yes, the Trump trade is still on. So I don't expect the dollar to weaken just like that. We should be expecting some further upside in the dollar index, especially after the big sell-off. XRP, whenever you see Bitcoin going down, you don't expect these cryptocurrencies to be trading in the opposite direction. They tend to follow suit. A red day on Bitcoin usually tends to be red for these other major cryptocurrencies. So don't expect to see something different. So despite the strong increase over the past 1 week, if you look at the 1 hour performance, it's already taking some step backwards. So as we approach the end, I'm checking on something here. What's all about US oil? Of course, with the Trump bet, the Trump bet is that Trump will promote production of oil. The previous administration was all pro green energy production. They really financed this and climate deals and everything. But Trump is pro-American companies and he doesn't believe in these things about climate change. So for him, he looks to expand the US oil production, and in that case, that is negative for oil prices. So yes, gold is still bullish on the long term. So despite the recent pullback we have had in the last couple of days, overall, China, India, Russia, and the BRICS countries are still buying even more gold. So long term, we expect gold to continue with the bullish momentum. So that's it for the day. Thank you very much, everyone. So remember, we have a new episode, the Bullish Banter podcast. So make sure to check it out. It's available on FX Pesa YouTube and on all podcast platforms. So in this case, we took a deep dive into Tanzania, Dar es Salaam. So I interviewed a couple of traders in Dar es Salaam, and they have a unique perspective of the markets. So you might want to check these out. So also remember, on the first week of December, we'll be having an event in Mombasa. So if you're a trader who resides in Mombasa, expect us, and we will be having a very interesting session. Check our social media handles to register and book your seat. Of course, the masterclass is free of charge. So on top of that, if you're just beginning your journey, make sure to check out the Novice to Pro series available on the FX Pesa channel. And also check out the links in the description below to register for a trading account. If you're watching this on X, then check out the FX Pesa handle. So that's it for the day. See you guys on the next one. And enjoy your Thanksgiving holiday.